This is episode 58. 58 episodes. Still
In
here.
what, a year and a half?
I think this will be our 2-year birthday in November. But
So roughly one every 2 weeks.
yeah, the podcasts kind of don't really come out as much during wrestling season.
Nah, I think both you guys are a little bit busy up there.
It's weird when you say up here because we're like in the middle, dude. You're down there. We're right in the middle.
Yeah, so therefore everything above me is up
All
there.
right. Well, okay, you're right.
I mean, technically, we're still in the southern section. We're the southernmost school in the southern section. But
What
San
school is that
Diego,
again?
I teach at Great Oak High School in Temecula.
Okay.
Yeah,
Temecula's out there.
Temecula is definitely south. We're big. Like we've grown. I grew up here. I got here in 1990, and I don't know. I think we had 35,000 people, something like that. I don't know. I could be way wrong on my numbers, but it has definitely grown. We had one small high school, and now we got three large high schools.
What's the population right now?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we could look it up. I think it's 130 something. I don't know. Let's
Let
look
me
this
channel.
up.
Let me channel my inner Jamie. It's 111,752
Now
in 2022.
that's just the incorporated. We have an outskirts, kind of like wine country that's unincorporated, but yeah, it's crazy. We've grown tremendously.
I like the Battle for the Bell tournament. I just I wish it wasn't so far away.
We say that a lot when we get to, when we had to travel all those years up to Fresno, and there was like 4 weeks in a row that we had to travel up to Fresno, especially in the freestyle season, whether it's at Selland or back in the old days, it was like Clovis West, Ed Buchanan. So we'd have to drive up there, it's
Yeah,
a
Brian,
full.
you have no idea how spoiled we are in the Valley. Everybody comes to us the majority of the time. Freestyle State, Doc B, Zinkin, Greco State, the whole thing. State, CIF.
Yeah, but we want an abundance of riches, man. Like I want
We have
everybody
a
coming to
bunch.
us.
We
I would
are
rather just sit in my
our cup runneth
castle
over,
and say,
Brian.
come over.
Well, I mean, I remember it's happened a couple times where we've hosted league, obviously in our city in Temecula at one of the three schools. And then CIF is at one of the high schools. And then, we ran masters for a long time in Southern Section. So there was a couple years where we didn't have to come out of our hometown for league, CIF and masters. Now you guys just have Valley up there, so like that kind of combines league and divisions, right?
We have divisionals and then masters.
Yeah,
Yeah. But just be thankful that nobody past Oakdale is good, or else we'll be having to drive way further up north, and it's far. That's a drive.
We went up to Red Bluff once for.
Yeah, that's
I
a
mean
drive.
that was Freestyle State or Greco State. It was brutal. Driving all the way up to Sacramento, like I think it was at Natomas High School once.
Sacramento's
Forever.
not even. I mean, there's like 4 more hours of California past Sacramento. People don't realize how big Northern California is. It's gigantic. It's a beautiful drive, but there's just a lot out there.
A lot up there for you guys.
It's definitely up.
It's all relative,
Brian,
man.
I'm on the Brian Navarro.
It's not. Well, it's actually no. It's north. It's not up.
You're
North, I
not.
think, is
You're
considered
not
up.
wrong. Look at you. You've been watching too many podcasts of some scientist who sits on Joe Rogan and talks about like celestial. Hey, well, today was June 3rd, and if you woke up at the sunrise, you could see the 6 planets aligned all in a row, which is ironically true. That was this morning, but
Brian,
That was
it's
your
June
end to
4th.
drop the factoid.
say it again.
It's June 4th, not June 3rd.
Yeah, I know. Like, okay, what happened yesterday?
Discredit it right there.
Whatever. Hey, I'm down a day. Yeah, yesterday, obviously grad night, and we're rocking Disneyland. Got my 5 hours of sleep, got back up and went to school today and did my job, but the voice is gone, but who cares?
How
Do
far
you
is
have yours in
Disneyland for you guys?
About an hour.
That's nice. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, right up the street.
It's about 2.5 for us.
Yeah, you guys got to come over that mountain range and then come on down.
Yeah, just getting over the Grapevines in about an hour, and then
Yeah,
so like Six Flags is like an hour 15 hour somewhere in there,
yeah,
and then
and Six Flags is about 210 for us at the
yeah,
tops with
that's about right.
traffic.
Yeah, it's like 3.5 to get to Temecula,
Yep.
which I don't hate Temecula, but I hate the drive. I hate the Temecula drive. You have to hop on so many highways to get there.
See, we don't mind going to Bakersfield because we did the whole Clovis run for a long time. You know, we go up to Clovis or Fresno. Okay, that's a difficult 5 hour. You know, I was up there calling the matches the last couple of years. Like I did the Clovis Buchanan duel, and the Clovis Buchanan duel would end at like 9:30. I'd pack all the gear up and all the production stuff, put it in my car, and I'd drive all the way back home and be at school the next morning. I'd roll in at like 2 o'clock and get up and go teach, and that's a
Bryan,
drive.
this is why we can't let Poway get too good. Everything's going to be in San Diego.
They've
We
been
Everything's
good
got
for
just gonna be
so
the valley
just
long.
has
Poway.
to remain superior, so everybody comes to us.
It'd be funny to do like a graphic where it's like, you know how like they'll do, like like sports. I can't think of like how to describe it, but like we could do somewhere it's like San Diego, or it's just like this is Poway, and then that's like Poway East, and then that's like Poway West, and then we'll just do like a little small sliver of like granite, and then we'll just go up into Temecula like Poway Northwest, and just expand it. It's just Poway.
For a long time, you know, we never dueled, and then there was a 2 year run where we dueled Poway. Uh, we got pretty close that 1 year, and then we actually came up and dueled Bakersfield the next day. So we dueled Poway, and then did a drive up to Bakersfield the next day and dueled Bakersfield.
How was their
That's a
schedule
mission.
this year? Was it like I want to say I kind of followed them. I know Buchanan and Clovis traveled quite a bit this year. Did Poway travel a lot this year, like out of state? Because they can't. I mean, with the exception of like two guys on Granite's team, they have nobody to duel, and maybe Bosco. Other than that, they don't really have people to duel.
Poway went up to they were at Reno. They go to that every year, and then I didn't go to the Zinkin this year. I didn't produce that.
Well, I mean, I think Clovis and Buchanan both traveled to like Illinois maybe at some point.
Poway went to the Oklahoma State.
They went to
or
the duels.
the Hall
Yeah,
of Fame.
Yeah,
Hall
okay,
of
that's
Fame
what I
duels.
thought. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They
And
have
they
to.
beat.
They're so good.
I'm trying to remember who they beat. They beat a couple really good teams. I mean, obviously, everybody there at those Hall of Fame duels are tough. Maybe like Edmund North or something like that. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, they wrestled super well.
It was the most prepared team I've ever seen.
John did a great job. You know, those kids, and they had it all. They had the freshmen all the way up to the senior leadership, and yeah, really, that might be one of the toughest teams in the state in the history.
They only graduate like 2 or 3 seniors.
Platt, I think, graduates. Root graduates. Does Navita graduate?
Yeah, Navita's done.
Paul Kelly is maybe a junior, or is he a senior?
He might be a senior.
That's the hard stuff. You know, I'm sure people, you know, who watch this are like, these guys don't even know the years. You just get so many kids. It's like, wait, are they a junior? Are they? And everybody who commits now, okay, well, are they a Stanford commit for 2024 or is it 2025? It's so difficult to keep track. I think the older Keegan is a senior, so he's gone.
Yeah. They have more seniors in the lineup than I thought. Is there a heavyweight a senior?
The Farah brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Adam was I'm not sure if he was a senior. I'm almost positive he was, though.
But Granite's got a couple good youngsters. I saw at Freestyle State. I don't think they're going to have the high-end heavy power that they did, obviously, with their two big boys graduating, but they might be they might be a better dual team. I don't know. I'd have to look closer, but they got some studs coming up.
We got to give O'Rourke and Brady a hard time. It's like, dude, like you should have just been on the podcast because now this is just we talk about San Diego and now it's a Poway podcast.
And especially with him, talking about how Greco is just not the greatest down there. I don't know.
I would have loved to argue that. That's a fun argument to have.
100%.
Pick a fight with people who hate Greco.
Hey, the offer still stands to any one of you four. I'll give you $1,000 if I can't turn you. And I'm a 47-year-old man.
I don't think you can turn me, Bryan.
Easy, dude. Easy.
You can't turn me.
From part two?
Yeah.
Money.
Bryan, I think
$1,000. What?
Yeah.
What? Carlo, you're the better dude, the guy that bets. What would be like what would be the odds? Be the odds maker in this.
I would. Well, see, the thing is, I know nothing about Bryan Navarro. As a bookie, I need information. If I were to blindly give odds, I'm going to blindly give odds right now. I'm going to make Bryan the favorite, but a slight favorite at a plus 115.
Yeah, that's because I got a plus 115 pounds on Batista.
That's what the plus 115 is. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I get my locks around you. You're getting turned.
If you get to start with his hands locked, Bryan, that might be trouble.
Okay, so do you get to start with your hands locked?
I'll go optional on the middle of your back, and I'm going to turn you easy.
Wow.
Confidence.
20 seconds.
Now let's make this clear for the people who watch this later. It's only to you, Carlo, Brady, and Sean. That's it.
See, I'm a Greco believer though. I think the most athletic freaks in the world actually do Greco. You're going to find more pure athletes who can explode, hit back arches, lift people from the ground to over their head in a matter of a split second. You're going to find more of those nasty dudes in Greco than you're going to find them in freestyle. Freestyle's, it's obviously a better product. It's obviously probably more populated with contestants. But the people who do Greco are a different breed of not just animals, just athletes. They are freaks.
I think that's what our text thread was about for a little bit, earlier the week. America's Greco is, subpar when it comes to the world, but
big time.
We got some studs on our Greco team for sure, and we've placed, we've done some medals throughout the world, but I don't know. I mean, we got some pretty good Greco big guys over the years.
I feel like we were making two different arguments, to be honest. I feel like I was arguing about Greco on the world stage.
Yep. And I was with you on that. It's the boys who aren't here who were not on board the Greco train.
If you want to argue that watching Greco in America stinks, yeah, I'll argue that. Watching Greco in America is not as entertaining as watching international guys wrestle Greco. And I would even say if it's an American wrestling American, it's still not that bad because both guys are evenly contested. But the minute you throw an international guy there, an Iranian, a Georgian, it's different. And the medals are more diverse. Like you're going to get guys from different countries. You're going to get more Germans, and you're going to get an Egyptian, and you're going to get countries who wouldn't normally place in a Greco.
100%. Or, whether from Azerbaijan or, any of the Uzbekistan or something, those guys can throw. They're going to lock you around their body, and you're going to go for a ride for sure.
Yeah. We can't argue it, though. There's no opposing points, Bryan. That's why we win by default.
It's because they didn't show up.
We win.
Just show up and get your hand raised.
Let the record show that Greco is a nasty, fun to watch, freakishly athletic contest between two animals, and that there's no opposing viewpoint.
100%. And we need to clip this and tag Robbie Smith in it, so Robbie Smith doesn't throw me the next time I see him, because that dude's got an amazing front headlock.
I think one of the things we talked about was, not to talk about Robbie Smith. I'm saying in general, American Greco, just across the board, maybe has kind of struggled internationally, and maybe that's why our perception or some people's perceptions in our friend group is that Greco is not cool. It's not fun.
Of
It's not
course,
interesting.
yeah, of course that's the perception.
That's not my
look at it this way.
perception. I love it.
Keegan Senior, who is like 40 something, maybe
I think
like
he's
maybe
46,
closer to
yeah. 46,
closer
47.
to 50 then.
Mhm.
He can go into our open and place at 47. That's the state of American Greco. He's obviously a phenom.
He was a world team last year. He was on the American world team last year for Greco.
That's the state of American Greco. We're just not on par. It's not populated with enough athletes. Our guys do it as a default if they can't make a freestyle team. There's just not enough participation.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot to the youngsters and the young programs not being taught the Greco across the board, with folk style and freestyle translating so evenly. And you see some of these college kids out there, being able to be successful in freestyle. But it's very rare that you see a college kid. Well, let's flip that. It's very rare to see the kids that are on our national team or on the world team for Greco do extremely well in the NCAAs. Obviously, we had.
Can you think of anybody specifically?
Yeah, the Michigan heavy.
On this side, well, yeah, I got to cross it. Where is it? It's over there, Michigan for sure.
Yeah.
The best heavyweight college right now.
You said he didn't have success at NCAAs?
No, well, I'm saying
it's rare.
He's
the exception. He's the exception.
I think about Braxton Amos. I think he might have redshirted his freshman year, and I think either one was a finalist in both freestyle and Greco. Maybe for, you guys need to help me out here, for one of the age groups. It might have even been senior level. And then how do you do nationally? I mean, he, I think was maybe a national qualifier twice so far, but wasn't this phenom that we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the history of our Greco studs over the years. Whether it was, I look at the current team. Well, within the last 10 years, you see some of those guys that they're not placing. They're not national champs. They're not top 1, 2, 3 in the podium in the NCAAs, and they're making the world team. I look like at a Rao.
Kamal Bay
for sure.
Oh, dude,
he might have been a one-time All-American, maybe.
Who's that?
Kamal
Bay.
I don't know if he wrestled for Nebraska or Wisconsin. I forget.
You said Kamal Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just did Greco, I think. I'm not even sure if he wrestled.
Maybe he didn't do. Yeah, maybe he didn't even do folk style.
Shout out Oak Park Rivers Forest.
Who was that young kid? This is where I'm so terrible. I think it started with a D. He was the young high school kid that made the Greco team and then went on. I think
Deichler?
Deichler, yeah. Yeah, Deichler. You look at those kids.
He was a high schooler when he was beating world team members.
Yep. Greco's a whole different beast. And if they're not here to argue it, bummer for them.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that was maybe at, I think it was 75 kilos? I'm thinking that's the right. It's Andy Bisek.
Yep.
Dude, so I didn't wrestle in college. He just did, I think, straight Greco. But dude, his mustache was legendary.
Legend.
And I think did he end up medaling?
I think he went to that tournament in like Belarus. If obviously we can pull up the stats, but yeah, that was a.
Yeah, he's a 2016 Olympian, two-time world bronze medalist.
Yep. I think that was in Belarus.
I'll give you a real big throwback name who plays both in college and in the worlds, Garrett Lowney.
For sure.
I think he was actually an Olympic medalist, maybe bronze, and he was a 1 or 2 time NCAA All-American, never a champ. I guess heavyweight is kind of the trend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Rulon there, and that legacy is gonna stay for a long time for sure.
But I mean, to have success both collegiately and internationally at Greco, it kind of makes sense because heavyweights aren't as leg attack centric. At least they used to not be as leg attack centric. Now they are. There used to be probably a little bit more upper body wrestling. So it makes sense that it would translate more at that weight class rather than any other weight class we have.
Yep. And I said it a few minutes ago, like, I think, and I'm not just biased because I love Michigan. I think Michigan's the best heavyweight college within the last probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very fair argument. You think about
even though they got the transfer last year from Northwestern and makes the finals.
count it.
Count it.
I mean, that's a small window of time, but we'll give it to you.
In the last year, Michigan had the best heavyweights.
Pretty good football team too.
They're all right.
Yeah, they're pretty good. How do you feel about Harbaugh going to the Chargers? Are you a Chargers fan now?
100%. Is being a San Diegan, born and lived so close, obviously here in Temecula since I was, in 8th grade. I love the Chargers. When they went to LA, it was tough. That was a hard pill to swallow for sure, especially when the LA crowd and the fanhood, they really haven't accepted them, and understandable. Take nothing away from the LA people, but it's really cool to see Harbaugh. I remember watching him in the stand, sitting in the stadium, watching him throw the football, and now he's coaching the team. I'm a happy guy for sure.
You were a Chargers fan already?
Yeah, as a young kid, grew up in San Diego, and being a Charger fan and a Padre fan, we don't hang our hats on too many championships.
Why are
zero at the
so
professional level. I don't know, maybe just because we've been bottom of the barrel for so long, and you can cling to basically 3 years, 84, 96, 98. Like, those are the teams that 2 of them went to the World Series. The other team was pretty good, but I don't know. We're Padre fans.
Well, I think when you look at fan base, like an important ingredient, I think, is hope. Like, there's hope, that the Padres are going to have a good season. There's hope. When you have Fernando Tatis freaking just hitting bombs, out of the park, it's like, oh, dude, this guy's good. He's a playmaker. We could be really good this year.
It was for ringworm, right? It wasn't the steroids to get rid of ringworm. Shut up, Tati.
I don't think you use steroids to get rid of ringworm.
I think all of us have had plenty of ringworm over the years. Yeah, I've never used a steroid on my ringworm. Give me some Tenactin or some fungicide, and we're good. Let's go.
I had
Bryan,
a really bad. Go ahead.
I was going to change the subject, so you go ahead.
All right. Well, I was going to say something embarrassing, so you go ahead.
I said I was going to say you have a question here. Was participation down at the last weekend's USA State event? That was one of the questions you sent. Was participation down?
So I'm not gonna lie, I delegated. I was like, I just got done with school and practice, and I wanted to spend some time with my fiance, and I did that. And Trent went, and I talked to him, and I talked to Spale, and I think a couple other people, and they were saying, there wasn't as many kids there wrestling as maybe there normally is, and I think I'm not sure the exact reason. I know it's sometimes a tough tournament to go to just because it is right at the end of a lot of people's schools. School gets out, and you don't necessarily want to go up to Fresno and go wrestle. But
I think it's one of the first times that was in late May, early June. Isn't it normally the week before? It's been a while since I've been in the freestyle Greco circuit, but I think it used to be it was like right after Memorial Day weekend. So, I guess it's the right weekend. Maybe it just falls at the early part of, because Memorial Day was so early this year.
Yeah, I was bummed. I wish we had some more kids going and wrestling in that tournament. We have, I think, maybe 4 or 5 kids that are going to go wrestle in those the schoolboy duels that are happening in Pennsylvania. I think they leave this weekend, but it's actually going to be kind of a cool trip. I think they do. They go to, trying to remember what school, and they kind of work out there, a college over there, and then they go to Penn State and they work out there too. And then they have,
cool.
the actual like duels, which I think is it's going to be a super cool experience. I think maybe Rutgers and then Penn State, I want to say. But they're gonna might struggle a little bit with the freestyle and Greco part, especially the Greco part. I mean, there's a couple of kids in there that just straight up never done it before. And then the other few, I think, just haven't wrestled freestyle in like a year, like competed freestyle in a year.
Bryan, can we improve Greco? Not just for Frontier, in general.
I think so. I think with some of these regional training centers that are out there, obviously CYC is always been the go-to for Greco, and with with Halverson passing, and now it up there with Guy and Robbie Smith, I think they're definitely the right guys to bring back Greco in that northern part of so we're not up there, the northern part of California, but. I think we might need another rule change again. In me personally, I think that if we went back to the old school parterre, you'd get more lifts, and the shot clock's always good. I think that's a good offense for the freestyle, but when you get that passivity in or the caution in Greco, I don't know. I think the guy to have on. Nick Kindred's, he's a guy. He's a phenomenal USA ref, and he's ran that Greco world for a while. He would be the best rules interpreter that I know. I think if there's a more offensive change for Greco, and I think that maybe bringing the hips back up for parterre like they used to.
Wait, you used to have to be. See, I don't know a lot about the Greco rules.
It was like referee's position. You were like kind of off your butt, like you made like a table, and then somebody would be on a knee, and they tap your back and go. Yep. So like you used to have to get your stomach flat.
I remember that. We're just starting that way.
Yep.
So you can get your reverse lock or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. And in the olden days, like if you gutted out of bounds, you could come back into parterre and have another opportunity to get that if you scored going out of bounds. But I don't know.
I honestly don't know what rules would help improve the spectacle of Greco.
The guy you gotta have on Bryan is Nick Kindred. Like he's been reffing for 25 years and knows his stuff, and he's actually an Olympic. He did the Olympic trials this year, and he's a Temecula guy for sure. He's the guy.
Here's a random thought. Make the Greco mat regulation size smaller
to produce more offense.
Because you see a lot of offense at the edge of the mat. Guys are usually YOLOing a throw so they don't get the step out, or they feel that there is less penalty if they have a good lock. They have a strong lock to throw, because if they don't get the throw, they can get the step out, or they can get the correct throw points. You make the mat smaller, there's going to be more opportunities for those situations.
Yeah. Didn't Garvin just make both teams? Didn't he make freestyle and Greco?
Yeah, so he won both the was it U23s or U20s? He was U23s, wasn't it?
Well, he's definitely U23. I just don't know if he's U20.
He won U23 for Greco and freestyle. Though you have Mitchell Messenbrink, who can basically choose to get that spot if he wants to, because he had placed third at the senior world team trials. I think we were kind of planning on doing that tonight, but we're going to try to reschedule that to next week. But I'm excited to have him on. I think it would be kind of cool to just talk to him. It's interesting talking to people from Stanford, just because they're interesting people, and they're usually pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, and I think that's leading to the coach too. I mean, Chris is just one of my favorite podcasts that you've done was his for sure.
Yeah, so we got a couple questions that were sent in. One is from Jesse Grajeda, Jesse83TW. He says, "Who is the best team in Cali next year?"
Buchanan's tough. Buchanan's tough.
Yeah, it'll be between Buchanan and Poway, the usual. Bosco's gonna be really good though, but they're graduating a couple of guys. Gilroy. I mean, can Cormier get all his guys again? He graduate, Merrill.
We've had that question 3 years in a row. Well, two.
Dude, I feel like you said you have the same opinion that Gilroy is just like a dark horse. Like Gilroy is a sleeper. Like if you underperform at the state tournament every single year that you're there, are you really like a threat?
Oh, I didn't say he was a sleeper. I wasn't making that argument. I think last year I was definitely making. Maybe 2 years ago I was making that argument. This last year, I thought that they were a dark horse in the sense that they weren't a complete team, but they had enough firepower if everybody performed. But then the brothers kind of both didn't have the greatest tournament. Maybe they underperformed a little bit, and that I don't know if that was a difference, but obviously they had to make the finals and win to stay in contention. But I think pretty much they all come back except for Merrill, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe their 45. No, their 45-pounder comes back.
The Gracies come back. I think the Cortezes come back. Moses Mendoza's back.
Zepeda's back.
Who else am I thinking of? Zepeda's only a junior, right? So he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who else am I thinking of?
The younger
90-pounder. The 90-pounder comes
younger
back.
Merrill's not there.
Yeah, younger Merrill's at JW North.
Correct.
Is that the name of school?
Yeah.
Potentially. I mean, that's how many guys did I just say? That could be 6 finalists.
If they all make it, at the same time, yeah.
That's at least 6 top 5 guys.
And Bosco had a great finish last year, but I don't know how many they lose. They lose their heavyweight, right?
But
he comes back.
Even if you're putting 6 in the finals, like, okay, what are they scoring? 25 points apiece. That's a pretty solid number. I mean, question is 150 points going to win the state title? So,
no, they don't score 25 now because it's a 64-man bracket, or is it 128-man bracket now?
Right, but even if they don't bonus along the way, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from. You're right, yeah. So 30 points.
You get 30 if you're in the finals, approximately. It's like 30, maybe 31, 32.
Is 180 points going to win you the state title next year?
No.
Need a whole team. Whole team's got to do it. And I think part of it also, too, is if you look at, like, I can't think of off the top of my head, but let's say, one of the Cortezes matches up with a Poway guy on the same side of the bracket and he beats him, or you have Moses Mendoza be on the same side as the Buchanan kid and he beats him. Like, possibly that can kind of, I don't think it's enough to win it, but I think it's enough to maybe in some ways determine the team race for those other 2 teams, Buchanan and Poway. But I don't see it being beyond a 2-horse race next year.
I think it's 3. I really do. I think Bosco's got that shot, and I'm not saying that for there being a Southern Section guy. It was pretty obvious this year that they worked extremely hard, getting their finalists, but they could get 4.
I thought that this was the best year for them in terms of their state performance. They've always had like 1 or 2 inconsistent guys. This year they're pretty consistent up and down the entire lineup. So can they remain consistent? That's the hardest thing. Like Buchanan wasn't consistent, and they're just so darn good. They're still there. Poway, they had to be consistent, and that was the only way they're going to beat Buchanan. Same thing. Can they repeat? Can all of their guys? It takes a full team effort now to win a state championship. Every single person has to click.
And Platt really helped Poway, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
I just remember them in the semifinals, and just every other mat was a Poway guy in the semifinals. Can that happen again?
John puts together a good team down there. I mean, they're losing some guys, but
yeah, but that's how it is with some of these teams. It's like you might be graduating a couple of seniors, but you got freshmen coming in. You got maybe backups that have made a lot of gains. People move up and down. It's going to be, I think, I don't know.
Well,
It's just, I think, a little early, but go ahead.
You saw the results at Battle for the Belt for Poway, right? Who was in the finals or top 3 at every single weight?
Poway.
Poway A, Poway B.
Sure, yeah.
So are they going to reload? Absolutely. They're going to reload. They might not have as much top-end talent like Root and Platt, but they're going to have guys who are going to be contending for medals and semifinalists and finalists, probably pretty close to that.
Especially with Posada. Like,
I wonder what weight he goes. I wonder if he goes 90s or shoot. He wrestled. He's going to wrestle, I think, 215s at Fargo. I think, right? Was it Fargo or was it National Duels?
One of the two.
One of those weights, dude, or one of those teams. Which it's. I mean, I don't know. It's cool going from 170 to 215. He's got a big frame.
It's a beast.
Yeah. Is he going to be? He's going to be a senior next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Get him out of here. Yeah. Pitting everybody in halves.
So who asked that question?
That was Jesse Grajeda.
Yeah, well, St. John Bosco.
Oh,
he'd be a cool guy to have on. I got to hit him up, see if he wants to come on the show.
I mean, if that's the same guy, right? I mean, I'm sure
I think it's the same guy. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. How many Jesse Grajedas do you think there are?
I don't know.
A lot in California.
I think he has a bunch of wrestling stuff in his Instagram. So
who placed higher this last year, Gilroy or Bosco? I don't remember. Let me look it up.
So we're all kind of scrambling. I was trying to find Cho's rankings, but his website's been down, so they went back to that Angel Fire, and I just can't find that link.
It's in there.
That's a whole nother thing. Is we need to have something that's I mean, it doesn't cost that much to continue a domain name and
no, but something happened with his CCS rank, and then he switched everything to Angel Fire, and that was right at the end of the season. So I'm sure he's going to load something up, but I'm trying to find that Angel Fire link.
I got it.
You got the Angel Fire?
Yeah, I'm on there. I'll tell you guys in a second.
Speaking of St. John Bosco, how about...
Are you talking about transfer? Are you going to do transfer portal stuff right now?
Well, we can lead into it later. I'm just saying, what an amazing poll for the best heavyweight college getting Sahakian. Like, stud.
Yeah, is it? I hope no one gets too angry at me when I say that I think he does better than Merrill in college.
You had mentioned that before, and I totally agreed with you. But the fact of the matter is that Merrill's beat him twice, and he's the guy. And, well, I mean, Oklahoma State versus Michigan, we're going to find out, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to be in the same conference, but we'll find out.
Gilroy beat St. John Bosco. Gilroy got third. St. John Bosco got fourth. Do you want to guess the spread points?
I actually have it, I think, right in front of me. I do.
Bryan, you can guess. That's like a 20-point spread. Gilroy had 3 champs, 3 thirds, and 8th. And Bosco had 1 first, 4 seconds, a 5th, and a 7th. So they were in position to be close.
So here's an interesting stat, and I wonder if it's this way because our brackets in California are so big now. But the separation between first and second was 45 points. The separation between second and third was 49 points. The separation between third and fourth was 30 points. No, I'm sorry, 20 points. And then third and fourth and fifth was 42 points. I won't keep going, but the trend kind of is somewhat the same. It gets a little bit closer as you trickle down, but usually you don't see that much of a spread with the top 5 schools. Usually it's a little bit closer. And I'm wondering if it's because the new dynamic of the completeness of each team, where it's not like 5 or 6 good guys or 4 good guys. There's like 8, 9, 10 good guys, and the depth of the bracket, meaning there's just an extra round of wrestling, extra 2 rounds of wrestling that you do now, because these point spreads are larger than I thought they were going to be. Now that I'm looking at it.
Well, this would be great to have Alfontes on, and he can talk about all the stats of the past, however many years of California state wrestling. But I think it's kind of like what you said. You have a lot of really good kids on a couple different teams, and then as you kind of get into these other schools, like let's look at like Vacaville, Canyon Springs, Los Gatos, Walnut, Clovis West, Pittman, Chaminade. I mean, all of them except for Chaminade. And Chaminade actually got 16th, the worst out of the teams that I've listed. All of them have 2 state placers, and Chaminade has 3. So normally getting 2 or 3 state placers, that might put you in a decent spot. Maybe even top 10, maybe even top 10. But no, to get in the top 10.
Well,
go ahead.
Usually being in the top 10, you need more than 2 state placers. In the last maybe 7 years, you need more than 2 state placers.
Well, let me add this. If you bring a full team and you got guys that are going like 2-2 or 3-2 round of 12, you can do that. Like Vacaville has 2.
Yeah.
Granite Hills has 2, and Granite Hills finished 8th.
Yeah. Fountain Valley had 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, to the point of you have to have a complete team now when you're contending to climb the ladder in the state rankings. Granite Hills and Vacaville are kind of, the case study. Canyon Springs is another case study. Los Gatos is a phenomenal team. They took 12th. They only had 2 state placers. But they're 12th with 2 state placers. I think they're outside the top, I would say 7. No shade to Granite Hills, but Palm Desert just had so much high-end firepower. They had 5 state placers, 2 finalists, a state champ. So outside the top 7, and Granite Hills, mind you, is only 12 points behind Palm Desert. Only 12 points with 2 placers versus the 5 of Palm Desert. To your point, Brian, it's because of the completeness of their team and their guys going 2-2, 3-2 round of 12. Probably the same for Fountain Valley and Vacaville. Dug deep on their results.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it plays into the amount of placers the amount of placers each section gets. Obviously, Southern and Central having the battle for years, but now you're getting 10 guys out of each section, and when you're placing 10th in some of those sections, qualifying all 14 guys, getting up to state, even somebody getting a fall in the consolation bracket's going to score you bonus points. So if you can go even 1-2, or let's say 2-2, if you start getting up to 3-2, now those are extra 6-7 points that you're adding up over 14 wrestlers, as opposed to the 5 guys that you're bringing. It's a big difference.
With the 2 divisions or 2 sections in the Southern section, how there's SS1 and SS2. Are you guys going 6-6? Is that how it works out?
5-5.
5-5. Okay,
Yep.
So it's still 10 allocation total.
It's still 10 allocation.
Okay.
That's Carlo's biggest fear, is that we're going to lose an allocation to like Southern section.
Actually, no. I mean, I always look at that,
Nope.
but I look at the data, and my whole thing is like, if we don't deserve it, we don't deserve it. It's merit based. There's a formula, and if we lose a 10 spot because Central section doesn't perform, then we deserve to lose a spot.
Central section has been beat by Southern the last 2 years, except for this year they tied. This year in 2024, each had 33 place winners, Central section and Southern section. In 2023, Southern had 3 more. They had 36, and Central had 33. And then the big year in 2022, Southern section had 39 place winners, and Central had 31. 2020 is kind of like you keep that stat in there because California had finished before COVID kicks in. So and Central Section just dominated in 2020. They had 40.
Yeah.
They had 40 state place winners, and in Southern Section had 33. So a full 7 more. The allocations aren't going anywhere. It's going to be 10 for Southern and 10 for Central.
I feel like those stats, my gut, my instinct says they point to a COVID hangover for the Central Section, which is not an excuse because everybody had to deal with the same rules and restrictions. I don't think that the schools in Central Section train with the same rigor as the schools in the Southern Section over COVID, and I think it played out in the years post-COVID in 22, 23, and 24. And you can kind of see us slowly closing the gap again this year. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like next year, but I think it'll be probably relatively the same with Central Section, either close to Southern Section or maybe slightly ahead.
Well thought out there by the Central Section guy for sure.
Yeah,
it's a good valid point, but Southern Section was shut down a lot, and actually Central Section was open a lot in that COVID hangover. And
yeah, but let me
Southern
add
still
to this,
performed better.
Yeah, I mean, look at we were going to a lot of these COVID tournaments that were happening in Arizona. There was a couple that was even in Bakersfield. I think the first tournament back during COVID was in Bakersfield. That's actually the same place that we were all training at. But the team that I think Carlo and I were maybe very much impressed with was Temecula. Like Temecula just ponied up, and they were going to all these competitions during COVID.
Bullhead City.
Yeah. Bullhead City, man.
Arizona, that little arena, that little football arena thing that they had was, and that group of guys, and they wrestled together for a very long time. Obviously, the 2 main guys out at Iowa State, but I don't know. I think the biggest tale is the fall off. You look at Central being at 33, you look at Southern being at 33. Take a wild guess at the next largest section and how many place winners they had.
San Joaquin, and I'm going to guess like 15, between 14 and 18 is what I'll guess.
Yeah,
San Joaquin, Central Coast?
It was San Joaquin, and they had 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. Central Coast was just...
No, not Central Coast, Bryan. CCS. Hey,
you said the biggest. You said the biggest.
No, the most medals.
No,
the most medals.
You have to make an inference.
Yeah, with him. San Joaquin had 18. So like a full drop off from 33 to 18 was just your Central Coast. They had 10. They had 10 place winners.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to lose you in allocation though is not your San Joaquin or your CCS. It's going to be is like in LA, for example, is Birmingham going to step up and really start qualifying and placing more guys, or whoever's in Birmingham's area. I don't know the other good schools besides Jimmy's school. But if they start qualifying more guys and getting more medals, they can steal an allocation. I don't know if it'd be from us, but they can steal one.
Yeah, but they only had 1 this year.
Only 1 medalist?
Only 1 medalist.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, hey, and this is a whole different argument, but some of Jimmy's guys wrestle for different high schools now.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Obviously, a few at St. John Bosco and stuff, but why don't we always come back to Jimmy, Bryan? he's freaking good, dude. He's a good coach, man. He gets those guys prepared, but I don't know. I think an allocation at San Diego. I think San Diego is at 4, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah, I think they're at 4, and they had 14 place winners this year.
Yeah, and that's driven by just 2 schools, really, right? I mean, I don't know if they had more than Granite and Poway.
Rancho Bernardo, didn't they have a couple
placers?
Maybe 1.
Maybe 1 or 2.
I don't think. Is it Morrow? Sorry, Joe Eddie terribly.
I'm looking down.
I think you lost in round 12 at 144.
They didn't have any. They placed 40th this year. They had no placers.
He lost in round 12.
And I'm not super privy into their off season, but I don't think the cupboard is full. So I'm gonna say kind of that I think the people have migrated over to Granite in that area. or Poway. No shade to Tara Blaney.
I'm gonna
He does
have
a
to
great
have him
job.
on, dude.
Papa
You asked
Joe.
me earlier.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers, and
You're a numbers guy.
I'm a numbers guy.
Let me ask you guys two controversial questions, if I may. If you had
Juice?
to go Power Five rankings per section, and criteria, if we went, obviously medalists, if we went, just maybe success or individuals that have maybe performed at a high level in the past 4 years, let's just say 4 years with this class, who do you think? How would you maybe rank those sections?
Central.
The sections or the teams?
Sections.
Okay. Yeah.
Central 1, Southern 2, if you're going just Power 5. If you're going, in my opinion, the top 5 schools of Central are better than the top 5 schools of Southern. But I think
Correct.
Southern has more consistency along the way.
Southern does, yeah. Where Southern beats Central is their, if you put 1 through 10, right? If you combine the two 5 guys from SS1 and SS2, where Southern outdoes Central section pretty regularly is like there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys win more matches than our 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys. Our top end guys are just better. We're just more consistent with getting medals overall. Not the last couple of years, but generally speaking. And obviously, if you look at the top 10, team for team, you're going to see more Central section teams placing higher than Southern section teams. Obviously, the one this year went to San Diego, which is not a Southern section team. Bosco was the highest placing Southern section team.
Yeah.
But then you have Clovis, you have Bakersfield, and we've been in there a couple times. And then you have Lemoore in the past, and Clovis West in the past, Clovis North. So we're always kind of rotating in and out of that top tier.
Who would you put 3, 4, 5?
Well, who you putting 1, 2, 3?
Well, so we have. I feel
San
like
Diego would be 3.
Okay.
I think
because of one section, I'd go San Joaquin.
Who's the highest placing San Joaquin section team?
Pittman, Vacaville. No, Vacaville first, then Pittman, Del Oro, Oakdale's and San Joaquin.
Yeah.
So Pittman is slow and steady, but they haven't cracked the top 10. I don't know if this is their highest state placing, maybe ever. Vacaville is pretty consistent. Oakdale is pretty consistent. This is one of their worst years, and so I mean, you can write this year off. They're usually usually has the guys performing in the top 15, top 12, top 10. Yep. So you can say Vacaville, and you can say, actually, is Vacaville and Oakdale, are they both in San Joaquin?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so.
So you can say those two schools. So then the question is, Brian, is 2 schools that place somewhere between 8 and 15, does that trump a school that's usually top 3? And then before that, you had Rancho in the top 10, and now currently you have Granite. So then you can add one more team in there.
What if we just add up placers? So how many placers does Poway have? 7, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So Brian said
Granite has 2, so they have 13. No,
yeah.
14.
Those are the only 2 schools that placed.
Yeah.
That's 14, and then how many does San Joaquin have?
San Joaquin had 18 placers.
Yeah.
And then what if you added up point totals?
Okay, well, theoretically, you got to take that out of the equation, right?
I mean, theoretically, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but I think the question was if you're talking about Power 5 schools in each section. No, there are
Power 5 sections. What are the top 5 sections?
I think you put San Joaquin over San Diego.
I would say San Diego over San Joaquin. Here's the other angle.
San Joaquin
they qualify more people. They qualify 6, I want to say. To San Diego's 4.
Which just proves the evidence that they've been a better section over San Diego.
No, okay. So I guess my argument
they're getting an allocation of 6 versus 4. They've performed.
Yeah.
And you have four teams contributing versus 2.
So I guess the question is, Is it more a recency thing that we're arguing? So if we're arguing now, I'd put San Diego.
In the
You want to
last
say historically, I would agree San Joaquin.
in the last 18 years, San Diego section has never had more than 14 place winners, and that was just the last 2 years.
Yeah. So now, if we're arguing right now, like the last couple of years, I'd put San Diego above them. But historically, I would agree with you, San Joaquin.
San Joaquin a few years ago had 20 place winners, and San Diego had 10, and all 10 were from Poway.
Yeah. So, but then you look at their teams. So they'll have more teams. They'll have like what's another team out there? I can see it. They're the Bulldogs. I can see it in my head.
Turlock.
Turlock's one of them, but that's not what I was thinking of. They might be the Bulldogs too.
Aren't they the
Vacaville.
How many Bulldogs are there?
Hey, there's a lot. There's a lot of dogs.
up
A
there.
lot of dogs.
There's some dogs.
And a lot of cowboys.
We do have to
So
say this. San Joaquin beat their association beat San Diego in
Sidigua.
the
Yeah.
duels. They won freestyle.
Now that's a little skewed, obviously, because San Diego goes with Imperial County, but it's still the section. You're right. Yeah.
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 I mean, do you go by population too? Is San Joaquin? They have geographically, I think their section's bigger.
It's more
Population-wise, I don't
expensive to
know.
live in San Diego.
It's by Mexico and Arizona. I don't know. Yeah, there's a bunch of dirt.
It's pretty simple. San Joaquin has had over the last, let's just go 7 years. They've had like 13.8% of the medals, and San Diego's only had 11%.
Yeah.
My
I still
argument
don't
is
think-
San Joaquin is above San Diego.
So to reframe what my point is, and I'm not getting off topic. If we're going Power 5, right, and we're saying top end teams that represent the best at state, I would say San Diego represents better at state than San Joaquin. Even if they have more medals.
You'd
top
have to
five-
put them at number one because they won the title.
They're up there.
I mean, if we're talking just 2024, but like I mean, we're arguing for nothing, in my opinion, because we haven't set a parameter. But if I'm talking today, the 4th, there, Bryan, June 4th, right?
June
Not
4th.
third.
Yeah. June 4th.
Or top 5, I'm going Central, Southern, San Joaquin, San Diego. And then I don't know who I would throw in 5.
CCS, dude. You got to put CCS at 5.
What about North Coast?
Nah.
You have to?
No.
Nah.
I think what North Coast have, I just put it away. I think they had 2 place winners this year.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
CCS wins.
There you go.
CCS is top 5. So, yeah,
I'll
top
concede,
5.
I'll concede that argument. By the way, Bryan, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to dig into a bad argument, so I'm going to concede.
I don't think it's a bad argument. I think you got a valid point with Poway being so freaking good that that scales a little bit more tipped towards the top because they're consistently in the top 3.
My argument's only strong point is the recency of the performance of San Diego, but your argument's better than mine. I'll concede that.
I'll take the win.
Yeah.
I get one more question from Instagram. This is from Steve Batisto. Recently, just with the Hall of Fame inductees and all that stuff, and Coleman Scott being inducted into the Hall of Fame, it's in Stillwater. It's at Oklahoma State. His question is, what do we think about what kind of just has happened with Coleman Scott? And maybe we can talk about the Oklahoma State stuff that's maybe been going on. You guys want to talk about that?
Well, that'll lead into the transfer portal because they got a biggie. Obviously, David Taylor is huge.
Let's answer Steven's question. Let's go into the transfer portal. Go ahead.
What are you thinking, Bryan?
What do you think about Coleman Scott?
Honestly, I love Coleman Scott. I think he's I like what he does in the room. From what I've seen, I do this thing where I do these crazy deep dives on coaches, and what's cool about Flow Wrestling and YouTube is like I can find stuff from like over 10 years ago, and I'll just watch stuff. So I'm a big fan of Coleman Scott. I like his philosophy. I like how he is kind of maybe to some degree more innovative than maybe what you see. let me kind of backtrack a little bit. I think what he does, or what he did at UNC, I think was something that was building, and I think how he brought new ideas into what was already there at Oklahoma State. I think they were going to be a really good team. I think what happened, I think, is just unfortunate. And I think him basically being out there for a year, moving his family out there, I think it's something that obviously I think a lot of people can sympathize with. It just sucks that he's not on the staff. It sucks that he's not there. So I don't know. I think it's a shock, and I mean I don't necessarily expect him to open up too much.
Well, let's lay out what was what we can surmise from the only evidence we know, right? So let's make some inference, Bryan. We don't know the facts, but let's make some inference, both Bryans. So Coleman Scott quits his job and goes to Oklahoma State. They have a good year. They have one of the best years they've had in a good while. John Smith ceremoniously retires, right? And it's assumed the heir apparent, because Coleman Scott makes this huge move that doesn't make a lot of sense at the moment, right? Going from a head coach to what was he, an associate, an assistant? I'm not exactly sure what his role was. So he, for all intents and purposes, we are looking at this move, looking at the age of John Smith, seeing it confirmed when he retires that the transition was going to be Coleman Scott. So I think where Steven is leading the question to is when a big donor steps in and says, sorry, Coleman, we're going after the big names right now, and hires David Taylor, and Coleman is not even considered for any kind of coaching position at Oklahoma State and graciously bows out, what's the thought process behind the look of that? I think that's where Steven's going.
And take it back one more with Esposito leaving before Coleman Scott comes in. Like, is that a situation where John Smith was kind of talking, to Esposito about that, or he had that inclination that he was possibly going to step down in a year or so? And, why does Esposito leave? And then here comes Coleman Scott, and then Coleman Scott's not handed the baton.
Well, I don't think that's John Smith's doing. I don't think John Smith had anything to do with the way things transpired. I think there is a lot of.
Wait, hold on a sec. Let me just butt in. Are you saying what transpired with Taylor being the coach, or with? Okay, yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Not Esposito and Scott, but more. He had nothing to do with the hiring of David Taylor per se over Scott.
Yeah, yes, the bottom line of how the coaching carousel ended, I don't think John Smith had anything to do with that. All the initial buildup, that was completely orchestrated by Coach Smith. I think the whole Coleman Scott thing was like, I'm done, I'm out. Let me transition. Let me find the best guy who I think's the best. And Smith even said, like, afterwards, like, he's happy about the hire. Like, he wants Oklahoma State to succeed. He wants them to be in the best place possible. So yeah. Sorry, Bryan. Going back to you, Navarro.
No, I mean, I just want to add to the story and the storyline, because Esposito, I think, plays a role in that. I wonder, and I don't think we'll ever know unless John Smith says something, I wonder if John Smith gave the, proverbial, hey, here's my guy in Coleman Scott, and gave it to the athletic director and said, like, he should be my successor. And he just went rogue and went for the big boy.
Do you think that happened?
I don't know.
I think they were looking at why am I blanking? Penn State assistant, CMU national champion, Casey Cunningham. I think they went for Cunningham first, and when Cunningham said no, I think, and I remember saying that, I'm like, because I think he had, maybe the word in the street was that he had shown some interest in the CMU job, but like wasn't really going to take it serious. And I think that might have opened the door for Oklahoma State maybe to try to put a foot in and see if that would be something that they could, talk to him in doing. And then that's when kind of David Taylor spoke up and was like, I'd be interested in doing this.
Did David Taylor speak up, or did they reach out to him?
Good question. I don't think
that was answered. I don't remember the exact.
I mean, not to like poke a hole in your story or anything, but I just think that's an interesting thing to look at. Like, that's a big difference, right? If there's an opening and David Taylor, who just lost the Olympics, who had no plans on becoming a coach prior, not the Olympics, the Olympic trials, who had no plans on becoming a coach prior to that event, all of a sudden completely flips. After he loses, do you think after that he said, okay, now I'm interested in coaching, or do you think Oklahoma State said, all right, here's an opening, let's offer him something he can't refuse, which is, kind of what the story is. The story is they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Do you think that happened?
Well, play into the part that somebody had mentioned. They read an article or a conversation with Dake that Dake turned down a high level job. Could it be a situation where they had reached out to Dake, whoever didn't make the Olympic team? Like, I mean, or did they see a situation where David Taylor did not make the Olympic team? Now we can go after him, and because OSU wasn't even on the radar to hire a new coach. I mean, everybody assumed that it was going to be Coleman Scott, right? Like, I think the most of the wrestling world assumed Scott's going to take over, but they never made that announcement, obviously. Smith resigns, Taylor doesn't make the team, and now maybe that athletic director was like, why not? Let's ask him.
Yeah, and I think his proximity to Penn State might have been something that was like, let's try to get a piece of what's making this program so successful.
I agree with that. I think that's the layer. I think that's the kind of the unspoken thing about this is Coleman Scott's obviously a proven coach. He's successful. He knows what he's doing. He has experience. This hire with David Taylor is a long game. It's a gamble, but it's a long game. Plus, what you're saying, Bryan, is that Penn State's very secretive with their training methods. Bryan, you and I have talked about this at length. I think what Penn State's approach is a little bit more unique, and I would say probably more data-driven than most other schools. People don't realize that, but probably a little bit more data-driven. And I think with David Taylor coming in, who's kind of privy to some of those training methods, he's going to have insight that Coleman Scott doesn't. Plus the name recognition, the brand recognition, the currency that he brings as an Olympic and world gold medalist. I think it's a hire that it sucks for Coleman Scott. I mean, he's, like Steven said, he's a Hall of Fame inductee, and it probably was the biggest curveball he's ever been thrown in his life. I mean, he got Mike Mendoza, but probably times 10. And I do think that it's a shame, but it's probably the right call.
And, I think part of that interview process or, that question is, hey, Dave, if we bring you in here, Mr. Taylor, who are you bringing with you? And, his pedigree, what's he got? Kennedy and Gelman?
And Brian Pearsall. This guy hires
so,
yeah.
I think, and I don't know if Taylor put that package together so quick. He obviously had to have some sort of talks beforehand because I think that came out fast enough. Like, it's just not, hey, who do I want on my coaching staff? Hey, I'm calling this guy. I'm calling this guy. I'm calling this guy. I think it was already like, hey, here's the package deal. An interview process. Hey, Dave Taylor, if you're coming, who would you bring as your assistants and so on and so forth? And he went bam, 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 recruiting guy. And they went, okay, here's your bucket of cash.
I think it happened more like that. I think the timing couldn't have been more perfect, which is probably why David Taylor said yes. Obviously with Kennedy, there's a tie there. But with Gilman also didn't make the team. So now you have an Olympic and world medalist as an assistant coach and a lightweight coach, which is really, really tough to find. That's really tough to find. A lightweight guy who can still wrestle really good, who has that pedigree as an assistant coach, who, from everyone you hear, has always said that he's someday going to be a great coach. Like, everybody who talks about Gillen as a coach, they always say he's going to be a great coach someday. Just the way he carries himself and the way he talks to the guys, he's a great leader. So I think all the dominoes, in my opinion, fell perfectly, which was unfortunate for Coleman Scott. that I think it was random. I think it was just happenstance that a couple of great guys didn't make the Olympic team, and that Oklahoma State couldn't have found it's what do they say? Success is when preparation meets luck. I think it was both of those things. They were just guys with deep pockets who were there at the right time, and it resulted in Coleman Scott kind of getting hung out to dry a little bit, unfortunately.
Is it Weiberg or Weberg? Like it's like Chad Weberg, the athletic director. Would it be a fly on the wall in that office, for those 3 or 4 days?
Well, if you look at what's happening, I think with the conferences right now, like it just not just with wrestling, but just what's happening nationally with Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, Pac-12. I think there's a conference buildup right now. It's just what's happening with all these college teams. They're taking advantage of NIL too. They're trying to build their collectives. They're trying to build up infrastructure. And there's, I think, a big effort to how can we become the dominant conference. And I think Big 12 with adding all those schools that were in that Western Wrestling Conference, then now adding ASU. I think it's just a race right now. ACC is doing something very similar. I know with their TV rights, they were talking about how can we build up, our sports and make it more marketable to our fans. All these different conferences are doing that. And I think there's pressure on athletic directors to lead the charge on that. So how can we make more money? We win more. How do we win more? We make sure that we go out and we get the best possible coaches we can on our staff.
And the best recruiter in the nation.
I think you're alluding to a very interesting question, Bryan. Number one, there's 2 parts to my points here, my questions. Number one, is wrestling a revenue positive sport in general?
No. And obviously we saw that with the lawsuit just the ruling a couple days ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all this money pouring into wrestling is a very interesting dynamic. So I don't want to go too deep into that because it's kind of it's going to be a sad conclusion. But number 2, and more importantly, college athletics has now taken a capitalist approach, and I am a capitalist through and through. However, what's the end? You guys know what the end game of capitalism is? It's a monopoly.
On all the cards.
It's a monopoly. Mm-hmm. That's not good for sports. You want parity in sports. You don't want a monopoly in sports.
Yeah, but that's
now
not.
We have a monopoly with PSU.
Mm-hmm. And that's not. I'd say the Big Ten. Obviously, monopoly.
Big 10, yeah.
Monopoly 100% with Penn State in the wrestling world.
Yeah.
But the Big Ten's.
We had the lowest viewership in a while this last year because the NCAA was over before it started.
Yeah, round one.
With the Big Ten. Yeah, with the Big Ten, the Big Ten is it's crushed the Pac-12. The allocations for qualifiers and other conferences has diminished. It's good to have parity, and what this has done is the areas, the teams, the conferences with the deeper pockets is eventually going to consolidate and suck in all the talent to their area to where everyone on the periphery is going to wither and die, and everything's going to be so consolidated, you're only going to have a couple of conferences left.
And that's
what's going to happen. These schools that are like in SoCon and what was kind of the Pac-12 and what's not, like they're just going to cut sports and they're just going to focus on a few where they can just push their money in.
Look how big the Big 12 has grown because they've consolidated into the Big 12.
It's the revenue share, and obviously that was part of that lawsuit last week, and that's the question. Are we going to lose some of these wrestling programs because of that, because of the scholarship cap? Wrestling was 9.9 for a long time, and now it's a roster cap as opposed to a scholarship cap. But
that's insane.
Say it again.
That's insane to me.
It's okay, but now instead of having the scholarships for all these big football schools that used to carry 85, and now they have a roster cap. I think there are only 4 or 5 schools that are probably in the probably in the black that are making money for wrestling. I think Penn State definitely. Well, I mean, they spend a ton of money, but I think that they're positive. I think Iowa's positive. Money revenue. I'd say Oklahoma State. I'd probably throw in Cornell and Michigan in that. Maybe Ohio State at the lower part of that.
Virginia Tech, maybe. I'd put them in there. Michigan.
Maybe. And look at those conferences, whether it's ACC, whether it's Big 10 or Big 12s. Carlo's right. You're going to get to these super conferences, and are they going to revenue share? Are they not? I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think ESPN and the money rights for all the the nationals. I think a lot of that money revenue is spread out, but I don't know. I think this lawsuit shakes up a couple things, but who knows?
Well, let's change topics, and then I gotta go. But transfer portal. It seems like the biggest portal news that's happened recently. I think we're, unless you guys have an argument there, but these are kind of maybe the biggest moves that we've seen, with Cam Amin, Andrew Lear staying, Kyle Parko, and Wyatt Hendrickson. I think I'm looking through all the transfer portal lists. I mean, this is probably, I think, the biggest names that we see in there right now, that have made these moves. You could throw in maybe Sammy Alvarez, but what do you guys think about just what's been happening with the transfer portal, and what do you guys think?
I'll let you go first, Bryan.
It's a ball of wax, man. Pandora's box, whatever analogy you want to throw out there. I think Hendrickson's Wyatt's a little bit different because of the military stuff, and whether his hands are cuffed. And again, we got to see this lawsuit play out, because I think the 2019-20 kids get that year back. Now that won't take place until next year and again, now I think that if I'm not mistaken, and I read it right, is when you transfer, you don't have to sit out, and you can transfer as many times as you want. If you look at, I think Parko's the big splash there, outside Wyatt. I mean, decommitments are different than the portal. Alvarez is staying at Colorado's huge. Because I think he preached his whole national championship. I know when we had him out for camp, he's a hometown boy. And maybe he wanted to test the market to see what was out there, and whether that was to get a little bit more cash from the Colorado NIL, or just was really unsure, and then found his heart and came back to Colorado. But Parko moving's interesting to me, especially. Is that a situation where it's because of Larkin? Is Larkin coming in, and can Larkin beat him? Like, what's that kind of situation? Are you going to get those Arizona boys that are wrestling at Valiant come through now? Is that the connection? It's interesting to see the St. John Bosco connection now go away with Sahaki and move into Michigan. But what Schultz going to do, all of that kind of thing for ASU is interesting to me, and I'm going to let that play out. But Cam Amin, I don't know. As a Michigan boy,
do you have an opinion on that, on all the transfers though?
I don't have an issue with it, because it's the kids have different fits. It's difficult to cherry pick, but. What's the old Muhammad Ali phrase? I'm paraphrasing, but it's not bragging if you can do it. And if these schools are getting these transfers, yeah, I mean, is it gonna crush the little guy or the mid-range programs out there? Maybe, and I think we saw that over the last couple of years. But it's a crappy analogy. But don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm for it. I'm for it. I'd like to see it regulated a little bit better, but hey, let the kids go where they want to go.
I don't like it. I'm going to say fifth year, like Ivy League graduates withstanding, like a Bruckey or a Davidson, which are fine. I think that's fine. Or a Hendrickson. I think those withstanding, I don't like it. So I think there needs to be more restrictions on NIL. I like Tom Bryan gave an interview, I think on Flow, and he's kind of saying his point was like all these coaches are adapting, like the Michigan coach is adapting to the portal, and Iowa is, and Oklahoma State is, and all these coaches are adapting. His perspective is different. Like his adaptation is he puts more emphasis on relationship. He doesn't want his guys to even have to think about what are the greener pastures out there. He wants to form a trust and a relationship with his guys that's so tight that they're not even going to want to entertain the thought that there's, a bag to get out there after they've had a little bit of success. I like the idea of loyalty. I thought the Alira situation is very interesting. He gave his post NCAA speech, which is all about, I just want to show people you can do it anywhere. It does. You don't have to go to a big school. And then not more than a month later, he's in the portal. I think it was just a week or two, actually. And luckily, somebody stepped up and wrote him a big enough check to where he stayed. But I do think it crushes schools like Colorado. I think it crushes mid-tier schools. I think it's not good for ASU. I think, God forbid, CSUB, for example, gets an All-American as like a freshman or a sophomore. The first thing they're doing is testing the waters. I mean, you saw it with our guy.
You saw it with Messenbrink. You saw Messenbrink at he was at CBU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been great for CBU. I was going to say Olenek, and if he didn't have that COVID year, maybe things would have been different. But Starochi goes online and says, "No, I've made the most money." like he stated it, like, I have made the most money through NIL. It's I don't know, it's the money grab, and it really, to me, if I was a head coach, Bryan kind of knows my style. Like, I'm not about that. I don't want to beg anybody to stay. I would never do that. If they felt like they had to leave, I wouldn't even fight it. I would let them leave, and that's not a good thing. I probably should fight it. And if there's a kid who wants to make more money, I mean, I don't know. I guess I get it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I think it just, from a program perspective, for the mid-tier and low-tier programs, all it does is hurt them.
100%. I agree.
But if you're a fifth-year graduate, whatever.
Well, guys,
I wish there was more.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if you graduate from college, you got your bachelor's degree. If you want to move on, I think move on. I think we'll probably see, if you look at who's transferred. There's a lot of guys that are either freshmen, sophomores, where maybe they've had guys kind of move into their spot, or these are places where there's been some coaching changes, which is going to happen. Or you look at the amount of graduates that are transferring. So I think some of it is kind of just the storm of, this is new, this is a new thing, and this is after COVID, where you have guys that have those extra years of eligibility. I think it's going to be interesting to see after this year what those transfer portal numbers are like.
I think it's only going to get worse. You've seen the pattern. You've seen, since it's been around, there's just been more and more kids every year who are entertaining offers. I would add one other caveat too. In addition to a fifth-year graduate, I would say before your first year official competition, so like even maybe a redshirt freshman, that's okay to change. Like, yeah, if you haven't competed officially for a school, I think that's kind of a gray area where if you take money to go somewhere else, that's fine too. Because you're not paying for a hired gun at that point per se. You kind of are. Like, if Messenbrink goes and wins a world championship at U20, like, he's going to be legit. But, if you're getting like Parko or something like that, which Parko was probably that example because he's a sixth year maybe. But you know what I'm saying. Like, if you get like I don't know, I'll pick on Penn State, a Nagao. If you get like a Nagao, there's maybe some illegitimacy to that, in my opinion.
Well, which leads back to, I think, Bryan, you hit it on the head. Another aspect was, the coaching change. I look at Utah Valley, obviously Bachman leaving, and I think he's at Iowa State now, correct?
Bachman from Utah Valley.
Yeah, Evan Bachman. Yeah, and he was their guy at Utah Valley, and obviously
there's a coaching change.
That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you on another valid point to with that coaching change. There's your transfer portal.
I mean, let's go. I mean, I feel like there's a lot. There's a Columbia guy that transferred. There's a Central Michigan guy that transferred. There's a Buffalo guy that transferred. There's I can keep going down the line.
And look at all these
guys that haven't transferred yet.
Look at these D3 guys moving up, or D2 moving up. Okay, is that part of the transfer portal?
That's going to be maybe, I think, less common, but I don't know. I think
No.
we'll see. That's all I can
I
say.
think it's probably more common than you think. The guy from who was it who almost beat Messenbrink? Was he from Nebraska? He wasn't a D1 guy the year prior. There's a lot of non D1 guys who come in and do well. Daniel Cormier was a D1 guy.
No.
I'm gonna push back on Negeo. I think it's maybe just a bad example, or maybe you don't know, but isn't maybe one of his high school coaches, isn't he affiliated with Penn State in some way? Like, isn't he through like training lab or something like that? Maybe he's like their nutritionist or something like that.
No, I know you're talking. No, yeah, the Hispanic name. I think he's a white guy, the older white guy. I don't think that's a good enough reason to go to Penn State though, because
he wanted to win a national title, and he did.
You're good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's he got money, and he wanted to win a national title. That's the reason why he went, not because his conditioning coach was the same conditioning coach as David Taylor. I mean, he had an in, but I'd stay at Minnesota. You're going to have just as many resources there.
And they had
Minnesota did great.
And they had an opening though at that weight class. I mean, you look at Bernie Truax, the same situation. They had an opening at the weight class. A guy coming out, from Cal Poly transferring over. Whether it was the money issue or, those guys, whether it was Aaron or Bernie wanting to win a national title as a team and place some points.
Well, guys, I'm going to end it there. We're getting close now to almost an hour and a half. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys. This is always fun. We got to do this, I think, more often where it's just us talking. I love it.
Well, I appreciate you always having me on. Definitely, I think Carlo and I are one-sided when it comes to the Greco wars and those guys down south. Maybe next time you can ask them.
They're just uncultured swine, Bryan. We gotta learn these peasants on the finer points of Greco because
I'm just a fat guy with huge legs and like to throw human beings.
Yeah, there you go. Throw 'em.
Bryan, before we go, when's the last time you put wrestling shoes on?
What are you trying to say?
What's the answer? What's the answer to the question? When's the last time you put wrestling shoes on?
Last week. I was in the room last week. Yeah.
Good.
And then before that, yeah, probably last year camp. Again, I was such a very average wrestler in high school. I sucked, bro. But no, man, wrestling camp for sure every year. Get out there and hang out with those boys. And this year's camp is just loaded with Vito coming in and Mendez and Nolf and Anthony Robles. Camp's just it's so fun.
Give the camp a shout out. Plug the camp.
What's the day for the camp?
Fullerton Wrestling Camp. It is July. Arnold, if you're watching, give me a break. I'm sorry. It's July. Let me look.
Sorry to make
it's like July 27th or 28th or something like that, because I think it's right when I get back from my honeymoon.
It's like the 27th through we normally used to do it Sunday through, it's the 27th through the 31st. Jesse Mendez and Vito and Jason Nolf. And then he gets kicked off.
Is it like a Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday?
It's a Saturday through Wednesday this year. We used to do Sunday through Thursday, but Arnold, Albert, and Lenny Campbell have been running that camp, and it's finally back in Fullerton. It's at Hope International.
Is that Fullerton College?
Hope International. It was at Hope International University.
Okay.
It's right by Cal State Fullerton. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I think I'm going to try to convince Emma to let us stop there on our way back to Bakersfield. And it would be cool to maybe catch some interviews with some of those guys and do some coverage. We'll see.
We'll get her a bigger ring.
Yeah.
It's not about the
ring. No comment.
All right. No comment. All right. All right, guys.
Hey, thanks so much, Bryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Carlo.
See you guys. Yep. Good
Later.
to see you, Bryan.